Only 11% of companies have scaled analytics and AI beyond the pilot stage. The missing piece is a foundation of governance and reuse. And really, that's where KNIME Business Hub comes into the market, and we can talk about using it to keep everything on the rails, building these reusable workflows where I can share them with my colleagues so easily, and just letting that be a strong foundation to build and deploy and scale my audit analytics on top of. So what I'm going to talk about now is where KNIME Business Hub comes in and kind of how we can use that to govern the whole life cycle and really kind of take this from being a little pilot use case and take it to something that we can scale out to the whole business. But before I jump into that, I just want to remind everybody to, if you have any questions about anything I've spoken about so far or anything that you saw in Tosin's demo or anything that you're about to see in this section of the webinar, go ahead and drop your questions into the Q&A. We will be answering those at the end. Okay, so there's kind of two things I'll talk about in this first slide with why use KNIME and why use KNIME with Business Hub. The first we've kind of covered already, both with my introduction and with what you've seen from Tosin. Building these solutions with KNIME Analytics platform really enables you to just increase the amount of innovation that you're able to bake into your solutions. You saw Tosin really quickly. I mean, Tosin's been using KNIME for quite some time, and she's a pro, but very quickly able to build out a workflow that encapsulated a lot of analytics and also brought in LLMs with that ChatGPT loop that she had there for the summaries and stuff. It's really a lot of power that you can use very quickly. It's great for building ad hoc solutions as well as for reusing stuff just because of that build speed. And that really, for a lot of our customers, is a huge selling point where something that needed to be off the ground in 2 weeks was impossible before. You needed to submit a request to IT. You needed to get the availability of somebody with programming experience to build out some of those more robust solutions. And now you can grab somebody with, 6 months KNIME experience even, who's got the domain expertise and really get them to bake this innovation into their workflows kind of at the ground level. But with Business Hub, we can scale this and we can reduce a lot of the risk that you get with these different AI, both traditional AI in the machine learning sense and also modern AI with the LLM that you saw. We can govern that. So that'll come out in things like the AI gateway that you see here in the screenshot a little bit, where instead of sending your data directly off to an LLM provider like OpenAI, that moves through a gateway that you customize to make sure that your data is cleaned. Perhaps you want to make sure there's no credit card numbers in that data. That way nobody's accidentally sending that out. And just kind of protecting you in that way with this gateway, kind of giving you that intermediary layer where you do some sanity checking, some filtering, and keeping it safe. The other thing I'll talk about is reliability. So when we scale these things out, we want to deploy them to the cloud. We don't want them running on somebody's laptop every Monday morning. I've definitely been a lot of places in the past where analytics is a show up early on Monday, get that report sent out to the VP by 8 in the morning so that they can use it to start their week. And sometimes that's meant Excel files. Sometimes that's meant Access databases. Sometimes that's meant like Jupyter notebooks with Python. But being able to put these things in the cloud and schedule them is so important to being able to reliably scale these things and make sure that they are reproducible, that they don't shut down when somebody's on vacation, and to make sure that your team is spending their time working on innovating and not just running the gears every morning. So really that's where this Business Hub is going to come in. It'll give you features like job scheduling, redundancy layers, this version control stuff, and there's a lot more there. And we're flexible with how Business Hub gets deployed. You can deploy it on-prem if you need to install it on like a server that's offline inside your office for like total security behind a firewall. That's possible. We also have a software as a service option, which will enable it to get deployed and set up without the need for your IT department to manage it. And then just really building this foundation of excellence to take things out of the pilot stage and deploy them across the company in a scalable kind of consistent manner. So, which brings me to kind of this next topic. To succeed, organizations must scale analytics and AI, but without losing control. So this is kind of another spot where I want to suggest low code as the solution, right? When we're using something like KNIME, we get this self-documenting visual thing that we can look at and understand what's happened. It's auditable. It's so easy for me to go in and open that workflow that Tosin just built and kind of pick up where she left off even. If we were working in Python code, that would take a lot longer. A solution like what you just saw Tosin built would be well over 1,000 lines of Python code, I would think, somewhere around there at least. And if I was picking up Tosin's work, especially if it hadn't been, reorganized at the end, somebody hasn't gone through and really commented it super well, their variables are named poorly, it's going to be really difficult for me to pick that up and keep running with it. So in that way, these are really great for making sure you don't get locked in to only one person being able to manipulate a solution. So this really brings self-service analytics, that centralized administration where you've got all of these different teams interacting through one business hub. You can operationalize AI so easily, like what you saw Tosin doing. And you can do that without losing control through that gateway that I mentioned on the previous slide that enables you to restrict which LLMs your enterprise is using, what kind of data makes it through that gateway off to the external servers, etc. And then, of course, just scaling this impact with that cloud execution, with that cloud scheduling, and with some things like the data app in the browser, which you saw locally from Tosin. And beyond just like the ways that this scales out, it's also a really strong collaborative way to work. So I talked about that with the code example, where if Tosin had shared that solution as a block of code, it would take me a lot longer to kind of get up to speed, review what she's done, understand all of it, understand why, understand which parts I can change, which parts I can't, and start adding value myself. So that does take time. And when I'm doing that with the KNIME workflow, it's much faster. But beyond that, there's also not this waste layer where I need my domain experts to communicate with my software devs or IT to give them this long instruction set on what they need built. They can get hands-on and kind of understand it at that workflow layer. And maybe you'll have a team that is really the KNIME pros, and maybe they help build the first draft of a lot of these workflows, and your auditors just know how to modify it, but aren't really power users. But this isn't really something you can get in other types of solutions, right? Like you're not going to have your IT team build a Python script and have your auditors modify it. This is something that you get with a low-code solution like KNIME. So there's really just zero waste here. The auditors can really leverage their domain expertise. You get these secure spaces built in with the KNIME Hub and these teams that you can set up with all of these security layers and different types of permission access that we can manage from the administration side. And then just this concept of like process memory. If you've got something that you used to do manually in Excel every week, maybe you have one person with a doc on how that happened. And now you have that workflow that can be reviewed by anyone to understand how we've done that in the past. And then finally, just to push kind of this one concept one more time, the paper trail, right? Like this is something that we're always trying to make sure we have. It's just paper trail. Where did my data come from? What did I do to it? Where did it go? Having this low code solution really enables us to see every little thing that we did to that original data. You can see where Tosin merged the columns. You can see where she merged the rows with those new lines. You can see that she built a loop to send it. And you can see that all very quickly without needing to review a code block. We can handle continuous deployment, and we could do that with some of our CDDS stuff. We're not going to get into that too much here, but if you look into Googling KNIME CDDS, you'll find a lot of ways that we handle model production and model deployment, and how you can automate the validation of those models to make sure they're still performing in a way that you like. And then just this version history concept, where just like with a code solution, you might want to be able to look through past versions. You can do that with KNIME Business Hub. I think I've talked on a couple of these, so I'll move through these slides quickly. But we get data apps, which are these interactive web-based dashboards, kind of like what you saw Tosin manipulating locally. You can automate the reports like Tosin did. Those can be converted into PDFs, sent out in emails, and this can be totally hands-off. That can just run every morning at 4 a.m. So it's on your VP's desk well before they make it in the morning. And then just the huge volume of connections and integrations and accesses that KNIME Analytics Platform and Business Hub bring to the table. KNIME's Analytics Platform is an open source tool, and we've had so much collaboration for all of these technology integrations. You're only seeing a few of them here on the screen, or you can access any data source, nearly any data source. I can't even think of one right now that I've wanted to access that I can't. If you asked me for an example, I couldn't come up with one. And really all of this stuff in the middle. You can do deep learning, machine learning, like regressions, ARIMA models, decision trees, random forests, all of this kind of stuff. And in the event that you find something that is like brand new cutting edge that we just haven't built a node for yet, you can code in a variety of languages right in the middle if needed. And then deployment is just, there's so many ways to integrate that as well. I talked about reports and data apps, but also there's the ability to set this up with REST APIs, plug it into your existing infrastructure, let it connect to your website, etc. And if you want to hear more about some of our customers and how they've used KNIME to really solve these industry problems, then I encourage you to look at some of our success stories on the website. You can find those at knime.com. There's a solutions bar right at the top. In the slides that you'll get, I've got a link here that takes you to the audit specific success stories. And yeah, read some about how our existing customers have solved these audit problems.